apologize. Something is wrong with the...
לא שומעים?
Okay.
לא יכול
They,
להיות.
okay.
אתם פשוט
Do you hear us now?
עייפים.
Oh, okay. They fixed the problem. That's wonderful.
אז
Irina,
חודש חגגת
This
18
month
שנה
you marked
לעלייה שלך
17
לישראל.
years since you immigrated to
מה
Israel.
התובנות שלך?
What are the insights you
גם,
have?
את יודעת, את עוסקת הרבה
You
בתחום
deal a
ההסברה,
lot, of course, in spokesmanship,
התובנות
advocacy.
שלך
You
בתחום
talk
הזה?
in the
מה
diaspora. So
שאלה
what is
נוספת
your
לשאלה הזו,
experience
מה
and
ישראל צריכה לעשות?
what should Israel
רואים מה
do
קורה
differently?
בעולם.
We see what's happening
ההסברה,
around the
אנחנו
world
רואים
in
מה קורה
terms of
בישראל, אנחנו לא מצליחים
debate on Israel. We in Israel are not managing to advocate for ourselves. We say it simply. So what can we do differently? First of all, thank you. And yes, I've been a new immigrant now 18 years, in fact. This feeling of being a new immigrant, you know, that they say that it never leaves you, but I never felt it at all. The question that you pose, what should Israel do differently? We don't have enough time to cover that. What should we do differently in order to advocate and talk on behalf of Israel? We have to do everything differently, but generally, I think we were never good at advocacy. And I think there are profound reasons for that, but now we feel it even more palpably. I think that we haven't been good ever in advocacy because we're pretty generally bad in strategy. And advocacy is something that you build long-term, as a long-term strategy. Also, we're not very good at nuance, and advocacy and spokesmanship requires a lot of nuance and diplomacy, and that's not really such, you know, one of our strengths, let's put it that way. Interesting what you say, because I've never heard anyone analyze it in this fashion, that it's the Israeli character, basically, that is its weakness here in advocacy. I think there are some issues that there are strategic planning issues. You don't, they're wonderful that we can do things immediately and without looking ahead, and we're tactically sound, but advocacy is something that you do sort of slowly, gradually, step by step, and that builds the foundations, and those foundations we didn't build. There's also another reason, and that is the mistake that we've made. We tend to talk about a misconception of security. I think there's also a misconception of the narrative of the Jewish people. And I'll try to explain. I think that for many years, and certainly since the Holocaust, but not only then, it's been years now, many years, in which we weren't, you know, we shouldn't be too proud, not like you know, try to look like everybody else, try to mingle in with the crowd, and maybe then, if we lower our profile, maybe they'll tolerate us, maybe they'll accept us, and it doesn't work. I've fought this kind of mentality for many years, and that's why I'm head of the Museum of the Jewish People, because I think we should be proud, and I think one thing that's changed since October 7 is that we can't lower our heads anymore. We see what students across campuses are going through. We have to hold on to our roots, our heritage, our identity, say proudly who we are, and this is who we are. We're not going to leave. We shouldn't be ashamed. Now, you ask me about advocacy. That is a painful subject. I don't know who's been tracking this. I'm sure there are lots of people here that do a lot of interviews and do everything they can to support and defend Israel, and that's great and wonderful, and lots of people care about that. That's great. But we don't have anybody who manages our advocacy on a national level, and we haven't had for months. We never used to be great at it, but now in the last few months, and let me say this, I'm sorry to be clear, Jerry Seinfeld does more advocacy than any minister in the government. Now, I thank Seinfeld very much, but why it shouldn't be like this? We shouldn't be counting on our advocacy on others. Advocacy is our future. It's our insurance for a future, so we should do it and do it well. But it means that we can't wait for later to do it. We have to do it prior. We should be doing it now. And there's no person, there's no entity in Israel responsible for our national advocacy. None. Let's take what you just said, the fact that we have no system that does this. in an orderly fashion. But let's talk to the museum. You are the chair of its board of directors, ANU, the Museum of the Jewish People. And as you said, we should be proud that we are the Jewish people. We should be bold and say so. We shouldn't hide and obfuscate. So what do you do in the museum in order to maybe change that perception, in order to bring us closer to the world and bring the world closer to us? First of all, the museum tells a different story. I mean, as I said, the general narrative, the common narrative is that we were helped, we were allowed to build a state, we were provided an opportunity because of the Holocaust. That's a narrative in which, no. First of all, the museum deals with the fact that we are a Jewish people. In order to know who we are, we have to understand that Jewish nationhood. We should be proud of it, and then we have to look to our future. You know, survival is something that you do on a daily basis, but if you don't have a common goal, a vision, and a common pride, then we won't be able to continue to exist. We need something that goes far beyond the daily existence and survival of day to day. That's not enough. And still, we are in such a difficult time that since the massacre of October 7 and the ongoing war, it surprised us all. But you are a person of very much a practical vision. You know, you're not only a person of, this ethereal vision. The question is, how do you implement it in such a difficult and complex period for the state of Israel? Look, we have this kind of habit to talk about important things, but only superficially. The issue of unity, which I'm sure is painful for everyone, every time that everybody says that we need cohesion and unity, yes, we should have it, we all agree. But we're not talking about it profoundly. We can talk about unity until we're blue in the face, and we can see the rifts, we can see the divisiveness in Israeli society, not only and also between Israeli society and Jews across the world. I believe, vision is a misnomer. A vision should be based on a higher philosophy, but at the end it's working together. Unity is formed when we work together. And we have gotten used to talk about something that we need unity, but not how do we achieve it. Now, if before October 7 we could just keep talking about unity, I don't think we have that privilege anymore, that luxury. And see how many people have been brought together since the war. And people are not talking about their difference of opinion in times of war, oftentimes. So only between emergencies can you create an in-depth dialogue about that. The question is, what is this state for? Why are we here? And then we have to implement it. We have to stop talking and do it, because then otherwise it's all talk. We talked about unity and we all felt good about it, but it didn't occur because we didn't implement it. Are you optimistic now, despite all the challenges and difficulties? And as I said, such a difficult time for us all. Are you optimistic? Look, I'm optimistic, full stop. It's not a question, it's a mindset. I'm optimistic, and I'm in pain. I'm in pain like everybody because of the hostages, because of the evacuated people, the soldiers, the families of all of the soldiers now in Gaza. But I'm optimistic because I think there's no other option. If we decide, at the end of the day, you create a reality by how you look at it and formulate it. I think we're going through a terrible time. The trauma of this generation, of what's happening now, the depth of this trauma, we will be dealing with for years to come. But we have a state. And I think that we did take a serious hit, and we see what people really think about, and we have to think about who we really want to be. But it's been an almost total collapse of our state systems. But this is also maybe an opportunity to build something. Now, is this the time to say what's wrong about the state? And that's, of course, a very common trait that we have as Jews. But also as Jews, we have another state, another condition, another instinct, and that is to build and to grow. So I must be optimistic. And an almost final question. When you look at the world, at what's happening around the world, the rise of anti-Semitism, the very terrible events in Europe and even the US, what do you think of this? how do you deal with these unfolding events? How can also Israel cope with this situation? I think we need, and this goes back to the talking about advocacy, I think we should have already, and I think we've already gone through the trauma, the shock of what's happening, not only in the state, but understanding how palpable, how present anti-Semitism is. I always knew anti-Semitism is a chronic disease. I always knew that in every crisis, it's so easy to blame the Jew. I didn't think, and I was surprised, like many people, to understand the scope of anti-Semitism. I think it's from ignorance, but I think at the end of the day, we live in a reality in which we won't be liked, we won't be accepted, because when we are weak, now it's not only our weakness, I mean, we're not the only ones that go to going war, but in a moment of weakness, we will be the ones to blame. And what do you do with that? Do you continue to try and be accepted by others? And by the way, I think the situation is in fact changing, because we are very, I mean, we got a hit, but even when things shift and opinions shift around the world and opinions of Israel shift, we can't see it, because we are, very much in the midst and the throes of this chaos. The question is, who do we want to be? What should be our vision for ourselves? Where are our roots? We have to stop waiting for the world to define us. We define ourselves. This is our state. We are Jews. Now, where do we want to take it? And that's our strength. And that's something that we should demonstrate and project out. Yes, we have to know who we are, not be ashamed of who we are. It doesn't help us to constantly try and be other than we are, or play a game or act a part. This is true not only for the Jewish nation and Israel, it's true of every country. I think that we have no other option but to define who we are and where we want to go. Yes, she certainly deserves a round of applause, important words. Do you have a message to the government of Israel, to the current government? I want a government with a vision. I want a government with a vision. I would like a government that, for them, the image of Herzl is not that guy with a beard, but rather a source of inspiration of what should be our future. What's the next chapter for us? I want a government with a vision. Thank you. Certainly a message we should all hear and should be echoed. Thank you very much. Thank you, Irina.